Great. We will go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Eastern Delaware County Joint Recreation District. Can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Watson.
Here.
Mr. Coy.
Here.
Ms. Greiger.
Here.
Mr. Elliott.
Here.
Mr. Muzacchio.
Here.
Ms. Sabata. 5 or 6 present, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes from the last meeting? Okay, I had one proposed correction. So that would be under new business. The second paragraph, the last sentence says the board discussed that current risk remains low until construction begins. My recollection was that we said until contracting begins.
Okay.
Any other comments? All right, I would move to accept, to approve the board minutes with the noted correction to changing the word construction to contracting, as we just discussed.
I'll second.
Ms. Watson.
Yes.
Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Muzacchio.
Yes.
Ms. Sabata.
I abstained since I was absent.
Ms. Greiger
Yes.
and Mr. Coy.
Yes.
5 yeas, motion passed.
Great. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to speak this evening? All right, the answer appears to be no. So that will take us on to the unfinished business portion of our meeting. And the first item on the agenda with respect to that is the community needs assessment and market analysis with James Russell from Pizzuti Solutions. I understand is the we'll be addressing the board on that this evening. Daryl or Mike, or do you have anything to say, or anyone else on the board before that starts?
I do. So let me just give you a little bit of insight in terms of where we are. So Mr. Muzacchio and Ms. Sabata helped with this. We've been talking about this at the last couple of meetings. So as a reminder, we put out a request for qualifications, seeking qualified firms to do the needs assessment and market analysis. In July, after receiving 3 applications, the committee got together, scored the applications, identified the Pizzuti Solutions Group as the most qualified applicant to do the work. So just as a reminder, the selection criteria was around past performance, demonstrated experience on similar projects, understanding of the project, the ability to deliver as required, and understanding of the strong community engagement expectation that this board has, local market knowledge and public references. So based on their presence in Central Ohio, and they're working with other public entities. And the final thing was the project team. So those were the criteria on which we scored the applications. And like I said, Pizzuti Solutions came out as the top. So after identifying Pizzuti Solutions as the most qualified applicant, then what we did is we went to work putting together a scope and fee, and that's in your packet as packet page. And I should have noted that. Packet page. Yeah, the contract starts a little earlier than that, but yeah, the scope is on packet page 10. And so that's what we're here to talk about this evening. I've invited Jim Russell, other representatives from the team that he's pulled together for this. And so I'll let them pick it up from there unless Todd or Maria, did you have anything else you wanted to add before they jump up?
Not right now for me. I think we'll wait and address any questions you may have afterwards.
Jim, why don't you come on up and let them know who you are and your plan for of attacking the project, and then we'll have time for questions and answers.
Great. Well, first, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. We're very excited, not only because we all kind of live in the area, but it's a great chance for us to really continue the work that we're doing in communities really across Central Ohio and a lot of the Midwest. My name is Jim Russell. I'm an executive vice president for the Pizzuti companies. I've been there 27 years. I know I look much older than that, but at the end of the day, it's been an opportunity for me to really build on what started as about a decade in the public sector. I'm a former city manager myself, focused on economic development before I moved on to the private sector. One of the things I know people a lot of times will ask about Pizzuti, the companies, because a lot of you may know of the Pizzuti companies as a real estate developer for over 50 years. We've been a real estate developer really all over the country with offices in Columbus, Chicago, Nashville, and Orlando. About 20 years ago, we created a wholly owned subsidiary called Pizzuti Solutions, and that's the company that I manage for the family and who the Pizzuti Solutions team really work for. And what's unique about the Pizzuti Solutions team is, quite frankly, it's the dedication to public sector work. So 95% of our clients are government clients, mainly local government. And what we do is try to build on our experience as real estate professionals and developers and planners, master planners, to take that skill set that we've done for over 50 years and really bring it to the public sector to help them understand and protect the public dollars that they're spending on similar facilities. Half of our team, probably more than half of our team, came out of the public sector as well. So we have over a century of paid public sector experience. So we really understand both sides of the importance of transparency, being able to defend the investments that you make, and really paying attention to the public engagement portion to make sure what is being developed, what's moving forward, really meets the goals of the city. So from a company standpoint, this is really so exciting for us. From a similar project standpoint, you may have seen in the submission, but we currently are on a run of community centers in Central Ohio. We're currently managing the New Albany Plain Township Joint Parks District development of the field house in New Albany. That's a partnership with Plain Township, the school district, and the city of New Albany. We recently finished and worked closely with our design partner, development partner on the Bob Crane Center in Upper Arlington. Ashley Sen, who'll be the project executive on your project, just wrapped that project up. We're very excited about it. A different level, a different type, a different approach of project, but still one that met the needs of the local community. And we just finished a project with the city of Grove City, is in a very similar spot as where you are. Really had done some early feasibility work, but helping them understand some validation of the program to make sure they are looking at the program that really met the needs of the community. But then what do you do from a next step? So there's some site analysis that we did, helping them understand how you physically put a program on a piece of property, what it takes to develop it. And then we did some financial planning for them to really map out opportunities on how they're going to fund their project, what it'll cost, what's the best strategies of advancing. And so that first assignment we finished up a couple weeks ago, and I'm sure hopefully they'll be moving forward as well. I think what's unique about the opportunity here that we see it is really to help you learn more about the community that you all live in, to learn more about what are some of the demands, the desires that your community wants to see in a place where they can, hang out, be active, take classes, do something more than just what you may find in typical facilities. And that's part of what we're excited to get going on, to help you understand in all of the jurisdictions, really to redefine or help kind of pinpoint what you experience every day, the growth of the community, what's going on, where it's occurring, the difference of bringing in folks new to the area who may not have been from this area for a while. So it's important to see what do they want in their community, what activities they want to see happen. And so helping to understand demographically what's going on, what your growth patterns look like, and what the demand of some of the activities could be here is an important element. And then to balance that with, more of the softer, I'd like to see this particular activity in here, or I'd like to see the seniors have a more active space. That's kind of that next level. And figuring it all out together, right? How do we pay for it? How are you going to distribute your share of the cost and memberships? How are those calculated? There's be a lot of benchmarking that we really look at, not only your community, because it is very unique, it's very specific, but to also give you a comparison of what's going on in some of your neighboring communities as well, and how they look at cost recovery. Because that's one of the things through this journey you'll figure out is, there's a lot of ways to pay for, but one of the most important parts is really how are you going to determine the cost recovery, the operational cost of that facility, and how that relates to the membership side, whether those be resident memberships, non-memberships, and how those things are kind of used to calculate to make sure you're not subsidizing these kind of facilities at a greater than normal level. I'd like to introduce the team that's here and let you ask some questions of all of us. In this case, we have partnered with MSA Sport. They were the design architect on the Bob Crane Center. We've worked with them on a few projects, really understanding not just the design part, but also this early programming and what it takes to understand what your community will want. So I'll introduce Keith to come up and introduce himself and Katie, and then we'll finish up with our team members. So, Keith?
So thank you for allowing us to be here in front of you tonight. My name is Keith Hall. I am with MSA Sport. We are a firm. We have a big presence in Cincinnati, and we also have a pretty solid presence here in Columbus. Katie Freeland here is our Director of Operations, Director of Design out of our office here in Columbus. I am the managing principal of the office. I am an owner of the firm. I'm like Jim. I'm old. I've been here been there for 35 years. I have not worked anywhere else. Stumbled out of college right into the firm. I like to tell that story because we have a lot of people. Katie's been there now 14 years. We're a place where architects and designers like to come. So it's a great firm. We do a lot of good work. Bob Crane Community Center is one of our sort of more notable projects in Columbus right now. But our sport market really reaches out from the municipal side and Parks and Rec, just like you guys. Through K through 12. We do a lot of K through 12 stadiums and master planning around their sports and recreation facilities, as well as starts to get into higher ed. Katie's done projects over at the Woody Hayes Center at OSU. But then we also have tapped into the professional market. So we do work with the Cincinnati Reds, Cincinnati Bengals. I do personally a ton of work with the Houston Astros out of Houston. Got some projects going on with the Miami Marlins. So baseball, Major League Baseball is a big thing. And we also have tapped in with like FC Cincinnati. We work with them on stadium renovations right now, and then their training center. So we like to say we cover the gamut. We continue to push that. We tend to like the community-driven stuff a lot. We do a lot of community pools, aquatic centers, and things of that nature. And the community centers are just a natural transition of that. Community centers are, they're a hub for the community to come together year round. Community pools are for 3 months out of the year. So these buildings are very exciting to work on. They're for the community, by the community. And they are community centers, but they're also wellness centers. And we like to say they're multi-generational. So everything from the smaller kids all the way up to the seniors, and it brings that all together in one environment. And there's a lot of positives with that. What we've learned on these types of projects over the years is that their success is really based on the level of engagement that we do with communities along the way. So I'll use UA as an example. We had community engagement with them throughout the entire process. It was very much, people think of community engagement meetings as being at a meeting like this and presenting stuff, but it was also community engagement extends to the groundbreaking and extends to the ribbon cutting at the end of the project. And you bring them through the entire thing together. That's why it's important at this stage to set a firm foundation with your community. So at this stage, what we like to do is we usually, we have a three-meeting process that we like to implement, but we'll also customize that based on information we receive from you or even the community. The first meeting would be just going in and talking to the community. Here's our thought. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's why we're here. Here's what the board is thinking. What do you think? And really just letting them listen. They're going to ask.
Sorry to interrupt you. What form do we do that first meeting? Is it in this form, or is there would you host like a community event or a get together? How would you?
That gets to the customization.
Okay.
So
sorry.
No, that's great. No, to answer your question, yes. It can be in a forum like this where we bring them in and they're all sitting back here. We do a very short presentation, and it's just like what I said. It's what do you think? It can also be more of a social event at a coffee shop or some other place like that where we go in. We sort of do the same thing, but we gather and we just have a discussion about the project. They're going to ask questions. Where's it going? We don't know. How much is it going to cost? We don't know. That's why we're here. And then that will start to get the discussion going, and that's important. Come back to the next one. We're gonna take things we heard tonight, and then at the next one, we'll have, that's more of a workshop, as we like to explain it, because by that time, there will be, some investigation on costs and, operational costs and that sort of thing. We'll probably have looked at some sites at that point in time. We'll have talked through some programming at that point in time and be able to have some very distinctive conversation with them about what we're thinking now and say, well, what do you think now? And they'll kind of add to it. They'll take away from it. We'll take away from it and go. And then eventually go to them and deliver what is the final product, the final, what we're going to get out of this process, which is, some identification of the site, identification of the money behind the project, identification of the program, probably some schematic conceptual planning that kind of shows how this thing might lay out and those sort of things and get their reaction to it. So it is a little bit of a process, and there's always two sides. Jim talked a lot about costs and operation costs. You need to understand that because that informs the design side also. So that's all I have. Any additional questions or?
Yeah, and I'll add a little bit to that. I wanted to make sure we have both Ashley Said, as I mentioned before, we've been serving as your project executive, really helping driving some of the strategy, and Sophia Lanza, who will be your project manager. Ashley previously worked for the city of Columbus in a variety of positions. Sophia, like I said, I stole her from the city of Westerville as a planner and downtown coordinator. And it's important to kind of mix experience levels with, we also have architects and contractors on staff, so it kind of covers the gambit. Kind of give you a little higher level. We have one other team member who couldn't be here this evening, and that's Rick Stein, who's the founder and principal owner of the Urban Decision Group. It's I'll say a market analysis firm, for lack of better terms. He does a lot of things different because he's also a certified planner, has a master's degree from the Nova School of Regional Planning, but also is a data geek, I call him. So part of his effort will be leading the demographic analysis of understanding all of the numbers behind the communities and the partners to understand how things are going and trends. But he also is a planner by nature too. So we kind of interact and kind of be able to map those areas, especially when you're trying to look at where does this thing ultimately end up? How does it really access and provide for easy access, whether it be pedestrian, bike, traffic, all those things kind of come into play. The way that we're really looking at structuring your project is we will have a community survey. That'll be an online survey. We want to reach as many people. We'll determine with you. It'll be somewhere within probably 15 and 20 questions. And we talk about how we'll work with your board to really get an opportunity throughout all of the communities to understand just where they're starting from, a good idea of some things. They may already come in with a predetermined idea of what they want to see. We want to hear that. We want to look at what they may not know about, some things that they'd like explored, just to get a good sense, the consensus on where the community may be from the beginning. As Keith had mentioned too, then we'll do a series of the meetings where we're doing a lot of public outreach, and it is critical on the time frame that we're looking at is during we'll say the entree into the holiday. So we want to be mindful of that to make sure that we're not missing people who can't be because they're traveling. The weather will be a little bit different. So we'll work closely with all of you to determine the best way when and where those meetings will be held for true public engagement. But we won't stop there too. A lot of it we'll see. We like to talk, but the dialogue will lead some maybe other community groups, stakeholder groups that you think are really critical to the process that we'll want to have separate meetings. We're happy to do that just to kind of take the information and continue to kind of build from it. And that's going to be a lot of the core work. And then there's a lot of work with you to process that and kind of prioritize some of the items to give you some representative examples of what we may mean by this type of activity. It's really going to be about trying to create flexibility in your spaces too, because we know we've seen trends. Some of us have seen more trends than others, but I use racquetball as an example, the transition from racquetball to pickleball and the time frame to move entire facilities, some of which become absolutely obsolete. So how do you start looking at spaces that can be flexible? In a community where you may not have all the money that you want to spend, looking at ways to combine gym space that can accommodate basketball and volleyball with more easier transition instead of poles, which are manually, operationally high cost, bringing in people to do some of that. So how can you invest in maybe a little different level of furniture and fixtures and equipment to be able to help do some of that? So there's a whole lot of that work that happens in between those. One of the things that will be important for us is how you want us to work with you too. We have worked in the case of the Joint Parks District. Most of the work was done with the committee itself. You're not a big committee, so it's how much work that you want to build. In some cases, we may say if you want to create a program committee or a building committee where maybe it's a representative from each of the entities who are doing a certain amount of work and then reporting back to you. We're open. That's really the communication piece. We're as willing to be as active as you want. The other piece is how you want to share information with your own political jurisdiction. That's a key component. I think that's going to be determined by those bodies in your role on this board. So we're happy to do that too, trying to be mindful of the schedule that you've outlined. I think that's all our topic we have. We're happy to now just kind of dive in if you have a certain question. The whole team's available. Hopefully that was a bit likely, but good introduction.
Oh, absolutely. So
I had a question. I think you talked about looking at funding options. And so in my mind, I guess, my very limited knowledge of how these things work, it seems like, there's the ability to have property taxes and potentially user fees. I mean, are there other options that you would be able to help us explore?
Jim, can you get closer to the mic? You just make
I like to walk. So
I-
I'm gonna get to work here. We'll see if we can go. There's a lot of public financing tools that are available in Ohio for the development of public facilities. And as an example, you'll have certain authority to be able to put bond issues on because you're a political subdivision. That is the path that the Joint Parks District in New Albany took. We did the original Bevelheimer Park was their first projects. They didn't know anything, but they had a charge to do a park. And so we helped them structure that in the original bond request to be able to put that on both an operating levy and a capital bond issue to develop that park. That's a traditional way of going, but there are other fees. You do have revenue that will be coming off of the project that gets back to the job recovery. What we always want to caution you though is the very few community public centers make money. So that's when we talk about cost recovery. If we can bring in enough dollars off of membership and program fees to break even, you're at a good spot, and make a little, you're at a great spot. But it's about the quality of life and the expectations that your residents have. So it always factors into it in some aspects, but it may not be what's driving the actual capital funding. In the case of Grove City, part of what we were able to identify with them, looking at the city's funding sources that they had available, they had an expiring TIF or a TIF that has a few more years. What we showed them is that they could extend that TIF because of changes in Ohio law to allow those TIFs to be re-engaged for another 30 years, which on its own would cover 100% of the capital costs of that building without raising any new taxes. That's unique to them and to Grove City, but it is part of the work that we'll do with all of your member organizations and political subdivisions. Say, what do you have that can be contributed towards the project to make sure that it's not just, that you're looking at one source that may be a tax increase. Could be that, but we don't want to start and stop there. So those are some of the items that we'll just look at opportunities. Other piece that I know was part of the Upper Arlington project is the potential to bring in partner space that is comparable and compatible. So we talked about wellness being a key component. In the case of Upper Arlington, you have nearly 37,000 about square feet of space that is leased to the Onstate Wexner Center to provide not only space for their doctors, but also programming space that's really fully integrated, and they're using part of the public space, and they pay a rent that was negotiated to help offset that. Those are options we'll explore when you're looking at how do we build it. One of the things that we always advise our clients when you're doing that, we want to make sure that it is a net adder to the community, that you're not in the real estate business to just do a project. It has to be one that there's a positive aspect of that, both financially and really the compatibility. But it's a good tool, as is naming rights. I mean, you will see opportunities. You could create some great spaces where partners want to be a part of it. And it's about managing the brand, but also getting the revenue as an offset and factoring that in. And the final one is foundation and endowment. And we'll talk about that especially in your position as you're really growing this opportunity, we always suggest that there's always a piece of the public that wants to be a part of a public project. Usually the newer the organization is, that's a smaller number, and it's okay to start small because they still feel invested all the way up to, in the case of UA and others, where they're raising $8-9 million. That can be a direct influx of cash to help reduce the capital. So all those get explored, and it's really about what the community's, how much they want to work, how much it fits their nature, and how much they want to include that. So those are all kind of a variety of sources that we'll start looking at. So it's not just, you're going to raise our taxes, you're going to build this. You know, that's not a good spot to, again, start with.
So I have a couple follow-up questions to that. So it does the potential for partnerships, is that like included in your the assessment that you would be doing? Like, for example, would you be looking at, like what type of partnership that the community would want to see? Like, for example, is the community really looking for more, medical office spaces or something along those lines? Does that play into it at this like preliminary stage where we're at now, or is that like more later on when you're trying to figure out funding?
Well, I would say we can't help ourselves to be thinking about the things you need. So you kind of get that part of in the discussions, and it'll always be part of what we're thinking about. For this assignment, however, I think the focus will be is understanding what your community wants, what really meets the program desires, because most of your neighbors are not going to say, and while you're at it, let's see if we can attract someone. And at first they may think we don't want it in here, and it's a part of an education process. So what I expect will end up is a program that is truly your recreation district's program. And then as we're starting to explore and we look at the cost, then we can say, well, here's what happens if you would add this kind of space. So you add 10,000 square foot of space to your program that is purely for a third-party partner. We're going to tell you what that will cost. We're going to tell you, depending on what you're thinking from a financing standpoint. As an example, tax exempt bond to build your building is not compatible with a private user. So all of a sudden, does that throw off of the tax exempt status and raise your cost? So we say, no, you got to have the right partner based on what you're looking at. But then also, what is the additional cost to build that space, and what's the market rents look like? We'll get some of that. It's not going to be the full detail in this scope, but we'll know and say, most of your rents may be $10 or $12 a square foot for a medical wellness user. What does that mean if we add the construction costs, look at the rents? The net income to you or the benefit may not be great enough for you unless you go to a higher scale. We won't know that. We'll be able to start talking about it. It's just not going to be in this project. It'll be part of next steps, things to consider. But we can give you enough info that you'll be armed and dangerous enough to know if you want to try it or you want to just do a little bit of additional work. I'm sorry, I've been drinking coffee since 5 this morning, obviously. I will take a breath here, and I'm leaving the country tomorrow for a few weeks, not because I have to. I better say that too anymore. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry. I have at least one more question. So since I've joined this board, I've kind of, my idea for what recreational facilities has gotten wider. I mean, I think when I was a first part of this board, I was thinking like a gym, a pool, and I toured a facility where they had a space for cooking classes and a hangout space for teenagers, and I don't know, maybe some people like ceramic classes, or so. Like, how, like, what type of scope of like what's the definition of recreation, and like how do you like gauge that in a market analysis and needs assessment?
And that's a great question. I don't want to also, I'll let either Keith or Katie answer it. it's a little bit like all of that. I mean, and it's terrible. This is probably not the right example, but you remember the Supreme Court definition of pornography? I can't tell you what it is, but I'll recognize it when I see it. That's kind of like recreation anymore and the opportunities, whether it be demonstration kitchens, whether it be, computer labs. We finished the Fran Ryan Center, which is a quasi senior center that has craft sales, but it's also industrial art. There's kilns, there's the railroad models. So it can be a lot of things, and it might be good, Keith or Kate, either of you. Yeah, let them finish that.
Yeah, Jim kind of tapped on it. Like we're coming to the table with no preconceived idea in terms of what this can be. And you hit it on the head. Community centers can be this, or they can be this. And so our job is to put all of it in front of you. The trends are everything you just talked about. Teen areas for the teens to hang out, demonstration kitchens, a senior center integrated with the whole thing. You heard me mention multi-generational. That's pretty important to bring the seniors in with all the other generations coming in to get that cross collaboration between these different groups. Gyms are the obvious things, walking tracks, fitness areas, aquatics areas, indoor, outdoor aquatics zones. So it really is, what does your community anticipate from this building? And it can be meeting space even. UA, you go to the top floor of that building and they have basically what we would refer to as rentable ballrooms with a pre-function space that overlooks the city. And it is gorgeous up there, and we can have that kind of space in here. So there's a money function side of this. There's what it's going to take to operate it and sustain it. So what that cost is, and so you don't want to overbuild, and you may not be able to build everything coming right out of the ground the first year, but set it up if this is the wants and the needs, but we can only do this in the beginning. Set it up so that let's build this first, and then we can come back and we can start adding on to it. And that gets to the site and making sure the site's large enough to accommodate some of that and everything. But on the front end, it's wide open. It's what best fits your community and your community's needs. Jim mentioned, and I thought it was a pretty good mention, was that you have a lot of folks moving into your community from other communities. And they may have experienced other things in their communities and what they had to offer. So hearing from them and what their expectations are, I think, is going to be pretty important in this process too. Answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. So obviously the board is representative of the communities, but how does your firm engage with the subject matter experts within the communities? Because I think that's part of building the support from the communities, knowing that the city's experts agree with what you bring forth. That's my first question.
Could be an example of a subject matter expert in your community that you would put in that category. It'll make me.
Oh, like who? Well, like a community development person or a planner, the recreational, yes, the staff, like a recreation and parks director. Are they going to be involved in those discussions? Because I think if they're up front and center too, I'm always sensitive to this is the consultant's idea versus this is the community's idea, and kind of blending those.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Yes, thank you.
Is anybody who's worked in the public sector, there's a whole lot of subject matter experts in a community.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I got the right ones. And that's a critical element. This is not us telling you what to do. It is us sharing examples of what other people may have done, not worked, what we're hearing from the community. So the interaction, and I believe that becomes one of the key stakeholder groups, is really understanding for each of the communities, how are you currently handling recreation? I was in a very similar spot. When I was a city manager, I worked in a place that had no parks and rec. So I had to figure out how to start parks and rec because it was a growing community, and all of a sudden there was nothing going on, and I had to very quickly make something happen. And so asking that question, how are you currently handling parks and recreation and activities for all ages of your residents? Some you may have soccer associations, you have parent-run organizations, which is fine. They become a key stakeholder, especially if it's going to be, hey, we need a place to practice. We need to know what their demands are. They may not physically be part of an indoor facility, but it's important information on the context of what you're doing for recreation and parks. So we will have that interaction. We'd probably like to set it up as more of a working group. And that gets back to how you may want, we have interaction with your board, but if there are those key groups and in context of who they are, to make sure we don't miss any of them. It's the same with some of the larger homeowners associations, because they're gonna be like,
HOAs.
hey, we know because we have 300 neighbors. We know it better than the people on the other side. And our job is to filter through as much of that. We want to encourage them as part of the survey, the community survey, and as part of the public meetings. But again, if we have to have another meeting, we're not going to skip a meeting because it's vital for us. One of the best events we did on some planning work we're doing for POW was at the POW Fest. And it was really interesting because we heard we're doing some master planning of where their city hall is on some green space. And we had 600 and some results in the community survey. We had, I don't know how many meetings and big meetings. And what we are hearing from the adults was that we want to make sure we have a place for our kids to be safe. We don't want them on a bike. They're riding to a Sheetz just out of town and it was making them nervous. We need something for them to do. And he said, well, that's fine. All of us who are over the age of 30 are not going to know what those kids want. So we actually went in and did sessions in the high school to talk to kind of late middle schoolers and early high school, say, what do you want? And the remarkable thing was consistently they said, we want a place in the town center where we can hang out and not get in trouble, which was almost exactly what the parents were saying a different way. Well, then we realized in POW, a community like yours where there's growing in young people, when we did the POW festival, we had stations that were set up for the adults, to come and talk about. But we said, well, we've hit the middle schoolers, but look at all these kids that live in this community. So we set up a part of the public engagement was called Penny for Your Thoughts. And we had a big bin of pennies and we put 3 groups of pictures of activities for kids. And what they saw, and things were colorful, a lot of ice cream votes happened that night, but it was giving them a group of pictures. And we asked the kids to pick a penny and drop it on the things that meant most to them. The parents loved it, but we had 184 pennies by little kids dropped on images. And so now when you're doing public engagement and you're starting to see, we don't want to miss the young people. We don't want to miss the teens, and we don't want to miss adults and seniors. And so some of the engagement that we do, sometimes we'll do it on the fly because it's important. We're getting feedback. You want to make sure you're building on it. But that community connection is what we want, because no one wants to have a building that is programmed that someone comes to and says, where did they come up with that idea? The one thing is probably the one thing that someone may have wanted, but no one knows about it. So that's part of how we approach it and we expect here. Some strong interaction with those subject matter experts, but still integrated with the rest of the community.
So Jim, if I could say this, would it be fair to say, though, that's one of the things we'll ask the board to assist us with as well? I mean, we'll ask you to help us identify key stakeholders, not only groups, but if there are key individuals, experts in your community that should be engaged in the conversation. We need to hear that from you and get them connected to the
And most likely they'll
consultants.
seek us out because they're like, hey, I want to be involved, and that's great.
Ask about ongoing operations. So I know we talked about managing and understanding what the budget's going to be and ongoing ops and things like that. I would assume you'd help us set up what the operations look like, hours of operations, staffing, things of that nature. Is that something that we would then go to another firm to do for us if we decided to versus managing it ourselves, or could your organization support that as well?
So we'll talk about this assignment will have some very high level operational assumptions to it, because even at the end of this, you have like a long path to go.
Sure.
So what we'll always do, and part of this assignment, is to give you those identified key next steps so you have a path, whether we're involved or not. We would hope that we'll stay as long as you want, because part of what's unique about Pizzuti Solutions and why we have different partners who do different things is our end game at the end of the day is we want to make sure it comes out of the ground. You know, we always say we want to, first we make it real and then we make it happen. So our goal would stay with you all the way to the end. I mean, we negotiated the leases for Upper Arlington. We can do everything to make sure that original vision that we do together is the project that happens. In the meantime, we'll never let you have to guess what you should be doing next. It's always going to be your prerogative. But at the end, we'll have some idea of, on a project of this size and scope, this is what we typically would see operationally. We won't build your entire operational budget at this phase, but we can, you know, depending on how you're advancing and how your political jurisdictions want to, we can do as much as you want. Here, we're trying to be mindful of your budget, to be honest, to help you move it along at a pace that you're comfortable with. But we can do everything that you need to have
Do you
done.
have in-house transaction managers, brokers, like?
Yeah, so the beauty of how we're organized is we have the wholly owned subsidiary, but all of us sit together in the big room. So as a full service real estate development company, we have construction people, we have property we manage 4 to 5 million square feet of property all the time. So we understand the operational piece. We have finance people. Our expertise is the public finance. Their expertise is private financing, but it comes into play, right? When we're talking about lease rates, we are a brokerage house, so we can do everything that you need to happen if you choose. It's like full service, got a whole lot of menu, and we're all in the same spot. And we pull people from other offices, to be honest, because we have similar associates in each of the offices. So we have former city managers and parks and rec people in another office. They'll work wherever we need them to work.
So I think that the end result of this assignment would be that we would get a report. For me, can you just kind of tell us what we could expect to see in that report? Like, are you going to have specific recommendations, or is it really just reporting data? Or
Sure. Did you happen to have did you get the gross a copy of that? I don't know if you have one and hold it up, but so we'll give you a report that really talks about your main deliverables. So the main deliverables on your project is really going to be that preliminary program of spaces. So it's going to give you an approximate square footage. We try not to give you one because there's a big process to move forward and say, here's what you told us. These are generally the spaces that are being identified. This is generally the square footage. We may have a couple layouts and site plans on how that space could be oriented. And then we're going to have projected costs for that. That's going to give you a range. When we give ranges, it's not because we're trying to guess better and make us not look so bad. It's because every project, you're going to have so many decisions that are ahead of you. It's like the type of carpet, the type of windows, the type of fixtures. Everything in our range is not going to be bad and good. It's going to be all good that meets your goals. Every public building cannot fall apart in 3 years. So we understand the importance of quality. But in that range, you can make decisions that are specific to the project that you're advancing through a design architect. So you'll have that projected cost. In this case, we will provide inspirational images of spaces. So you'll have something to say, this is kind of what this look and feel, and probably similar facilities, I would assume. So within that budget range, we're going to give you examples so you can see a project of this size in this range. Here are some examples of what they can look like. Because there is a full design process that you'll go to that will take you, anywhere from 8 to 12 months, depending on the size of your building. So you'll have something, and then we always give you the next steps. Next steps could be as simple as acquiring one of the identified properties, or develop the criteria for identifying and acquiring parcel, how your procurement should work for your design team and your construction team, the type of delivery approaches that we typically see for your building. And I won't go into all those, but there are some based on your program. We may say you should be using a construction manager at risk approach to building it, and here's why. It could be, no, you're better off doing it as a CM agency. So we give you some direction on this project, what we think how you should build it, and how you can procure those. And we'll give you those kind of next steps so you're not, again, left in the dark. We want you wanting more because that means you're hopefully advancing your project.
Yeah, and maybe just a little bit, so we've got it as a 6-month project.
Mhm.
I mean, I think there is a touch base or two back with this board, so it's not like, they go off for 6 months, you don't hear from them again. I think we'll probably also end up with some kind of a summary of what the community has said through the needs assessment. So you'll have the data behind, that sub portion of it. And then I think at the end, some sort of high level pro forma or something like that you kind of alluded to as well. So again, it's not all the way to, here's your ballot language, to do, it's not that. That's not what the needs assessment and the market analysis is about. There will be other things we'll have to do after that, but this is sort of the key step that the exploratory committee, when we went out and started talking to other communities about how to get this project started, that's what they said to us. This is where you need to start this project with your JRD, and that's why we've been focused on trying to get this piece started.
And I would draw the board's attention to Exhibit A of the professional services agreement that you have. So in particular, Phase 3 lists the deliverables that Jim was just discussing. But the 3-phased approach to the project, the services they're proposing are all included in Exhibit A. Phase 1 primarily being the public engagement, market analysis. Phase 2, the visioning, and then 3 is more of the analysis and the hard deliverables that you would receive. So that's something that the board should consider with the service agreement, as well as if what's being proposed in that exhibit meets the deliverables you're expecting.
So I have a question to that point. Probably, and I know this won't happen, but let's say that the board at some point is questioning the deliverable, the ability of Pizzuti to meet our expectations in any of those areas. What's the form of discussion, mediation to resolve that? Because this is a fixed fee, so there are expectations. And I know it won't happen, but if it does, I just have to ask that question up front. Like, what is the process we would go through?
So Jim, if you want to speak more to it, but in Section 2 of the agreement, it talks to Pizzuti's good faith compliance with the objective of the project. I think and hope that Pizzuti would be open to ongoing conversations if maybe there's some feedback being provided that the board wants to maybe see something going a different direction, or if that's not exactly what the board is anticipating, that we could probably work through that during the process to make sure that the ultimate outcome is what the board desires. We'll talk a little bit, I think, after our questions about the services, about the paying for those services and the appropriation methodology to get to a fulfilled contract. And that's another mechanism that the board has to make sure that, you're agreeing to pay for these services, but you're going to be paying on a monthly basis. And you want to make sure that you're getting the services that you contracted for.
And typically, if there are issues, because like you, of course, it would never happen, and of course, it never has happened, but it could happen. And so what we would typically say is if there's something in particular, usually it's not because, hey, we haven't seen you for 3 months and there's 3 months left, what are you doing? That's a very different situation, and we wouldn't be in business if that approach was happening. But it may be like, hey, you got 40 survey responses, we really need more. How are we going to improve it? So we'll sit there and we'll talk through as a team, because we can only put so much information out. It is a team effort to get people to participate. That could be one where we would sit down and say, well, let's see, maybe it's time to put a notice in the mail. Maybe it's time to do a direct mailer. We've talked about leaving it a little allowance in this, so you have flexibility. That's actually your money. It's not ours. That's for saying, maybe we need to send a postcard. That's where that would come out. So you have some flexibility, but it's really called curing. We would have a way to cure what's not working for you. And then if not, then you cancel the contract and we go, oh. So
and you're referring to the $5,000 that you have there, and that's included in the 56.
Yes. Our fee is 40 some, and that's just, and again, when we say owner's allowance, what that means is you're the owner. It's an allowance, and you say, we would like you to send a postcard, or we may say, here's something that we think would be beneficial. We don't mark that up. That is a direct cost, and then it's just already available. So instead of having to say it's in between your meetings, And instead of having to wait to the next meeting, you all saying, yeah, these are the things that we know to deliver this project we want to provide access to. So it can just be moved with a simple yes, and we pay it and it just gets reimbursed. So you don't have to front the money. We do that just to keep things moving. But it's not a fee. That's.
I'm assuming it's passed through, like at cost.
Yeah, we don't mark it up. That is purely, all we're doing is facilitating your spending of money for your project.
Sorry, another question. Just for purposes of our like internal planning of how we would, well, it's not internal, but planning as a board on, you know, how we would work with you moving forward, you know, if we went with this contract. Do you have any, you know, like general idea of how frequently you need for feedback with the entities that you work with? I mean, I understand we probably get updates from you from time to time, but do you need to be able to talk to people, you know, like every week or every couple weeks, or, you know, have somebody around to answer questions?
Yeah, we probably, make sure this doesn't sound out, we probably don't need you as much talking as you would think we may, because it's really about the community pieces. It's more reporting, so you're not left in the dark, because you're in the community and we want people to go to you and say, hey, I didn't get a chance to do that survey, but I'd really like this. That interaction is important. You need to be informed donors because you're in the community. And so it's going to be more of, you know, if there's a way to increase community participation because we're coming to a township meeting, or we're coming to the village meeting, or we're coming to the city meeting, we'll come and we can do a report. We'll just say, here's where we are today. And we'll do that as often as you'd like, as long as it's not, I shouldn't say, not weekly, because we'd rather be working on the project. But if it's once a month coming in to give an update on, hey, we had these meetings, or here's some results of some of the community activities. We would like you all to participate in those meetings. There's a little participation requirement we'd like to see. So if we're having a community meeting, it is really helpful to have you engaged in it too, because your residents will want to see you being part of it, and it helps you understand where we're going to. So we may ask more of you than you may ask of us, but we're happy to accommodate. The beauty of a larger team is it doesn't, you know, won't always be me. I mean, everybody can come and give a report and give you some updates as needed.
We did talk a little bit in advance. Would they be looking for a steering committee or a working group, a subset of our unit? But we'll work through kind of what would be the most effective way to do that. So we didn't really land on what we thought, because I think we'll certainly want to know what the board thinks. But yeah, there certainly will be lots of opportunities to touch base.
Yeah, and there's no recommendation that would end up in vote that is not really your recommendation. We're not going to give you your project. You're going to be engaged. We're going to come and say, hey, here's two things that, you know, can go this way or that way. That's kind of the work that the board will do. We will need some direction, you know, so that those kind of interactions we will have, and we'll ask for a meeting, because, you know, or to do a public workshop. So we're working with you and the public can come, because we, you know, we just want some more input from leadership.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
So based on this timeline, 6 months, and say we want to go to the ballot next November, would that be viable with where we are right now? Say we get going tomorrow with 6 months, or should we be looking at rescheduling everything else just in case? I'm looking for future timeline. Say we move forward with this. What happens next
So
time?
you have to put, if you're looking for November 26th, you're in August, but you'd have to put the ballot issue on. So you basically have a time frame to finish this and still have time to do a little bit more work in the public engagement. So as an example, when we worked with New Albany on the last bond issue, we actually recommended someone who could do some polling and ran the campaign. We then kind of shifted over and then structured more of a, we'll say it, a bond sales package, because we didn't want to over produce too many complete renderings. We needed people to see what it may be, because they didn't have money to engage an architect. So it was taking the report and putting little visuals to it, and then they did a series of community public meetings trying to sell that ballot issue. So it will be tight, but it just depends on how, I'll say quickly, but it's the holiday 6 months. So we just want to be careful, because we don't want to push you and complete something that's not good work. So we expect that we can get it done in 6 months. That would still give you, to my math, about 4 months, I think, to prepare. It's tight. New Albany was about a 4 month period, and it was a very close election, but they didn't win it. It was very close, so
Okay.
that's the problem of tightness. As an example, Grove City, as an example, as we were going through the financing, what that report showed was they could build the building, but they needed to do an income tax increase to be able to help subsidize the operation. That was the model that they comfortable with, that they were recommending back to council. So in that case, what they were concerned about, well, now they were talking about putting that on November of 26 ballot, which would mean it's 27 before they would have the revenue from it. So they asked us, well, what's the impact of that? What could they do? And in that example, we showed them, and they were fortunate because they had enough cash to engage the architect. So what was in the package, they haven't agreed to it yet, but the package that went to council, which was recommendations from committees they had set up that we facilitated, was so we'll start design, and for about a year, about the time it would take to design the building that came out of the program, they would be doing very active public engagement because the design is even more active than this work. So for a year, you're working with the residents on how things are going to look and how big that structure is going to be and the playground equipment inside, all those elements. So you have a year in that case where they're promoting the project. So that bond issue hits, even if it's doesn't pass, then in that case, they had advanced a plan that they could put it back on the ballot or find another financing, but they used that time to do more public engagement. So it was kind of a twofer. So you're there, and we're mindful if you're telling us that's what may happen, that may be what you're thinking about. We can be mindful of just watching those dates and being honest with you, like, wow, what we're hearing, they're not quite there. You need some more engagement. But if not, physically, the time frame can work. It'll be tight.
Could you expedite the 6 months into a compressed 4 months? But the holiday season really is right in the middle of it. You're straddling it.
We've spent a lot of
Thoughts?
time. I think it'd be tough to get you something, especially if
Okay.
it was to go to a ballot. I mean, you don't want to, you got to be careful
Yeah, of
because,
course.
you get to the point and it's a no, you may not be able to come back for 2 years because it's a no. And, so you
Understood.
want to cut, we're not rushing to get it done. Yeah, we get the money faster, but that's not, we want to do the project.
Understood.
So we won't lead you astray.
Okay.
We'll tell you something that won't work for you. That's not good.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? If not, we talked a little bit about how to advance the project this evening, if we want to do that from a budgeting perspective. So, Mike, if you just want to maybe share some thoughts on that.
Absolutely. So thank you. We have a draft contract. There are some reciprocal provisions that we'd like to propose back. But the main business term that we want to focus on is really the funding of the contract. As you are all aware, we have a pretty unique funding situation currently, or does not have an operating levy. As a result, we're dependent upon Berkshire, Sunbury, and Galena making contributions for whatever expenses the board wants to take on. I believe there have been conversations about some of those communities contributing money to the board this fiscal year in order to get the work started, especially when it comes to a consultant. Whenever you approve a contract, you have to sign off that you either have the money in the bank, so to speak, or that it's going to be in the process of collection. So one of the proposals that we would suggest, including in the contract, is that the contract is subject to annual appropriation. That way you can get started for the first couple of months throughout the rest of this year with funding that you'd be receiving, hopefully from someone like the city of Sunbury, hopefully Galena and Berkshire as well. Perhaps they'd even give you the full contract amount this year, but that might need to be budgeted for next year in part. And then you would be able to fully fund the contract for the rest of this fiscal year and then into next year as it's built into those political subdivisions budgets. So we would propose that also being a part of the contract. You can incorporate that into a separate resolution that the board can adopt approving the contract if you'd like.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I mean, the city of Sunbury has already approved the appropriation amount to cover this. So even if we took just our share and put it into the JRD budget, we are good to go for the rest of the calendar year. So we wouldn't even need the other jurisdictions to make an appropriation adjustment. And then of course, we're into another cycle of appropriation as well. Again, the agreement here is we're going to share the cost, but certainly the city of Sunbury, I think, is in a position right now to be able to help this project move forward. This evening, if we're prepared to approve the contract with that condition.
Yes, and I would also, just sorry to add on top of that, I would make sure that you socialized the services with your communities as well, to make sure that they're also in agreement that that's the direction that they see for in the consultant services and market analysis, community surveys, just so that they don't seem surprised when they're going through their budgetary process and they're asking, well, you need this much money for this particular contract, and then they ask for more details on what the contract entails, and they say, well, we weren't thinking that that was what you were going to be selecting. And then you have run into potential friction with budgeting. So we want to make sure we avoid all of that.
Yeah, I should. I do share in the village administrator is getting copies for Galena. The mayor is getting copies of the documents as well. The township administrator in Berkshire is getting the documents as well. So they're seeing the same documents you're seeing. I'm pushing to the administrative team and the elected officials as well. So again, I don't think anything there is going to surprise them. No.
So I'm sorry. So you're suggesting that we, speak with the individual political subdivisions that we represent, and the people, like the councils or whatever, and
yeah, just to make sure they understand what's the needs assessment and market analysis gets them. That it's not everything. We want to make sure that they don't think this gets us all the way again to a ballot issue.
But we don't need to wait for that to actually have the authority to move forward, if I hear you correctly.
Correct. You just need to have the money in the bank.
Yeah.
Or a way to get the money in the bank.
Yes, a written commitment to get the money into the bank.
We don't have As the treasurer, I can tell you, we don't have that.
But we do have a commitment.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, I'm sorry, so then we would also need to amend our budget
We
at the
would.
same time that we were to move forward. Okay.
With a budgetary amendment and a resolution entering into this service agreement could be conducted through a virtual meeting as well. I know the board has been meeting bi-monthly towards the fall here, and if that cadence keeps up, then we could certainly approve those resolutions in person. But if the board would like to act more quickly, could schedule a virtual meeting with the virtual meeting policy that the board has adopted and approve a budget appropriation adjustment and whatever contract the board would like to move forward with.
So then we don't need to vote necessarily for anything tonight. We could agree to set another meeting in about a week.
Or we could.
We could.
All right. I was going to say,
Discuss right now. I mean, we kind of have to discuss if
Yeah.
anyone has any,
Yeah, that way we can.
between, yeah.
yeah, I mean, again, conditioned upon the appropriation, receiving the appropriation,
Okay.
which again, we'll work through the mechanics of that. But again,
So we could
City
do
of-
it tonight. We could do it in
yeah,
like a
the
week.
city of Sunbury, like I said, has already approved the appropriation for the JRD, which is adequate to cover all of the costs for the balance of the year for this project.
Well, but the board could make a motion
Okay.
that, subject to appropriation and receipt of the funds from the city of Sunbury, that the professional services agreement with Pizzuti will be executed by the board with the advice of legal counsel.
So thank you.
So that's everyone here. So I looked at all three proposals that we got. Does anyone think that anything is better than what Pizzuti presented? Do we think there's
We've had several meetings.
Yeah.
On the three, so we've met, we've talked to Pizzuti and this whole team before, so. I don't obviously, at this point, but,
Yeah.
we have had, we've asked them further questions. So that's kind of hard, not seeing that whole process. But it's been talked through in detail, so, yeah.
Did you meet with the other two organizations also? No?
We did not.
No, but we also did not meet with Pizzuti in advance of determining who was the most qualified. So what I want to make sure we understood is we followed the process that the board approved,
Mhm.
which was to identify a review committee.
Yep.
The review committee scored the document or scored the applications based upon the criteria that had been approved by the board as part of its request for qualification or the needs assessment request for qualifications. So I want to be very careful about we followed a process
Sure.
to get to this point. I think to say then that there's to consider someone who did not score the highest is very risky. And like I said, the process was the committee would determine who they felt was most qualified, work on scope and fee, bring the scope and fee and contract back to you. That's what you have in front of you today.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the due diligence was done already.
Yes.
I believe that this is our best option going forward for the scope that we have in front of us. And now we just need to vote to approve it based on everything you said that I'm not gonna try and repeat.
On your list of conditions,
Yeah.
yes.
So if there's no objections, I mean, I can make a motion to move it forward. So I'll make that motion. Based on everything.
Everything Mike said,
Yeah.
that he's probably the only one who remembers what it was. Yeah.
With the two qualifiers, right?
Yep.
That were discussed.
Yep.
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
All right, any additional discussion? If not, Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Ms. Sabata,
Yes.
Mr. Mizacchio,
Yes.
Ms. Greiger,
Yes.
Mr. Coy,
Yes.
Ms. Watson.
Yes.
6 yeas, motion approved. All right, great. Thanks. Jim, I'll be back in touch with you in terms of next steps. Yeah. So now,
You don't want to sit around and listen to us talk about insurance? It's really exciting.
Safe trip.
This is the most exciting part of the meeting.
Coming back from the country though,
Yeah.
back into the country.
3 weeks, but everybody can get a hold of me.
No, that's fine. No, take time off.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you very much.
Hi. Yeah, thank you.
Our pleasure. You guys ask great questions and that makes us feel good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect number.
all right.
There.
That's
Great.
great.
See you tomorrow.
Yes, I'll see you tomorrow. All right, take care.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Great job.
Yes. Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
There.
All right. I think we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the insurance quotes that we had talked about last time, but we tabled for this meeting. Since that meeting, Bernie and I and Mike had a meeting with the Ohio Plan agency, or the agency that gave us the Ohio Plan quote, to try to, get answers to some of the questions that were raised. So Greg, I believe you had the question about when we can make the policy effective, and it's really like anytime moving forward. Like, we could say if we were to move forward, somebody could contact them tomorrow and say we want insurance effective today. And we did clarify that the actual, the credit, there was like the $3,200 some dollars for the premium, and then the minus the $550 credit. So it's not like the credit comes in later on, all we pay out of a bank account.
700.
Yes. And then I don't know, Bernie, if you want to talk about, the concerns that you had and how those were.
Yeah, from my perspective, there's a lot in this package and it seemed like, well, do we need all of this? They went through and highlighted the items. I don't see it in this package.
Well, yeah, and there may have been a miscommunication. It was my intent that we include, so after we talked to the Ohio Plan people, they sent us over a version of their proposal where they highlighted the specific types of coverage that was really applicable to us. So it doesn't look like the highlighting came
Must have been.
through,
Yeah.
but I can just kind of run through because I do have a copy where it came through. So the computer coverage, general liability, employee benefits liability, employer's liability, public officials, errors in omissions and employment practices liability. Those would apply to us. Law enforcement officers liability does not. Automobile, I think that the agent used the example of, if, for example, one of us were driving to something for board business, like a conference, and we got into a car accident, that would be covered under this policy. We would also have the cyber coverage, not terrorism. Yeah, oh, no, we do have the terrorism, the malicious act. And
I'm sorry, why would we need terrorism?
malicious act.
It's covering us, not the building, right? I'm just curious in that.
The coverage includes bodily injury and property damage.
So somebody got really mad at us.
But
So-
community, that went really
Want to attack that
south.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so, in speaking with the agent, we did have to submit a pretty lengthy application that gave a lot of information.
Gotcha.
And, Mike was very helpful with that, and we submitted that. And so this proposal is based on
On the responses that we
that
get.
we gave. And so it's not something like where we can say, hey, can you take the law enforcement off and lower our premium? You can't do it. It's a package, but the premium takes into account the things that would actually be applicable.
Correct.
Makes sense.
And when the items also, with insurance, it always, like anything else, moves up in price. Some items move up in price faster than others. During our discussion, she said it's about the same as inflation. I'm like, perfect. So we're not going to see all of a sudden a 50% increase because it's 2 years of coverage. Keep going more. So it's no, she said it was marginal. So, yeah, it's just a plan for the future as well.
And just to add something else that it's reflected in the plan, but I'm not sure how much people may have appreciated this when they reviewed it. We do have access to, I believe they term it a risk manager, and it's something that we can talk to. Like, for example, at a certain point, we would need like a public complaint policy, and that risk manager can help us with that. They do at a certain point, if we had employees, they will review our policy manuals and things along those lines. And that's part of our membership in the plan.
Okay.
So to move forward with this, I would, someone on behalf of the board would need to sign the last page of this quote and just contact the agency and ask that we have coverage on whatever effective date we would like.
Board previously adopted a resolution authorizing the procurement of insurance by the chair, vice chair, or fiscal officer. So either any of those three people can sign the contract.
Okay, so
It's just a matter of the board coming to a consensus on what insurance you'd like to move forward with.
So really, we just need a vote on whether to, which quote to proceed with.
You would not even need to have a formal vote, but that might be helpful for picking a direction. You've already authorized the procurement of insurance at the discretion of the board, the vice chair, and the treasurer.
We really just need to decide and much it costs. And then we have to make sure we have funds for it.
We do, so our budget includes a $5,000 appropriation
Yeah.
for insurance.
We just don't have it in our bank account.
I think the way that would work, Daryl, is we would just, until we actually get the money in our bank account, we would just send it to you, and it would be handled the way some of the other bills have.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to, and I've talked. I have talked to her about making a cash transfer so it begins to operate out of your account rather than cycling through the cities. But yeah, that's the same way we've been paying the legal bills up to this point. They've come to the city has made the payment, and we're documenting what the share of the other jurisdictions is. So.
Okay.
Okay.
So to make sure I'm clear, I think, Madam Chair, you did say, is it the 2537? Is that the price that's after the discount? That is.
Fine.
37, yeah, page 36. Well,
Yeah.
It's
pretty.
2537.
It is.
The payment we would be making.
Page 24 or thereabouts.
depends on which
Yeah.
one you look at.
Yes.
And the one that, yeah. I look at the page numbers at the top.
Yeah,
Big page.
so unless,
If you do a vote, remember, we've got this table, so we probably need a motion to take it off the table, and then if you, but again, sounds like based on legal counsel, you probably don't even really need to do that, but
why not do belt and suspenders?
okay. Well, there you go.
We have first make a motion to untable this topic. I'd like to make a motion to untable the insurance topic.
I'll second. Or do I have to, we have to?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like,
Mr. Coy,
Yes.
Tiger,
yes.
Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Mr. Muzakio,
Yes.
Ms. Sabata,
Yes.
and Ms. Watson.
Yes.
Motion approved to untable 6-0. Okay.
Accept this, right?
So
Go ahead.
I will make a motion to move forward with the Ohio plan proposal and to move forward with in obtaining insurance through the Ohio plan as soon as practical.
I will second.
All right, Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Coy,
Yes.
Ms. Sabata,
Yes.
Mr. Muzakio,
Yes.
Ms. Greiger,
Yes.
and Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
6 yeas, motion approved.
And then, so I guess it's up to me, Greg, and Bernie to figure out who wants to sign and submit. So
Got his stamp ready. He's let him sign it.
No.
Oh, okay. I thought you had like your rubber stamp ready to go.
I can sign, that's fine.
yeah, whoever.
Is it? No,
Yeah, if you wanna sign it.
can I just sign and rip it off and hand it to someone?
Yeah, we can
Perfect.
facilitate getting it scanned and sent.
If you are able to scan it in tomorrow, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, I can, try to do it from my home PC arrangement. Yeah.
You want me to scan it?
I'll copy, oh, I'm happy to scan it, and then I can copy Meryl to coordinate payment as well.
Thank you very much.
So it's just signature, not even my name, title. Okay, signature. Right?
Would include your title,
Yeah,
yes.
I would write it.
Title there. It says by. So my name, where's the signature then?
The I line will be your signature.
Your name, title, vice chair, subdivision, Eastern
Sunday.
Delaware County Joint Recreation District, and then today's date.
With no signature.
I would just, I don't know, Mike, I'm just.
Yeah,
On the I line, I would sign.
Just do it.
Do it rather than print.
But hold on, it's a different one? Hold on.
We're
Page 76.
no, no.
Or is that just the application?
Yeah, that's,
Yes, that would have been the application that was submitted to provide the proposal you have in front of you.
Yeah, I signed that a while ago.
where it says, but yeah, sign your name. So you can, I mean, sign it. That's admitted.
I'll start over. It's too complicated. All right.
Signature.
There you go.
I would print it. Some person. We know who you are.
Just in case.
know who you are.
Where I live.
And where you live.
I know. Mother's maiden name. Title, or it's.
On the idea of my driver's license for the bank account stuff.
Exactly. They know way too much about us.
Yeah.
Subdivision would be. Yes, continue discussion.
The next item on the agenda is new business. So I think we've identified one new item of new business that we're gonna have to resolve is the an amended budget.
Yes.
So I'm not sure the best way to move forward with that. I mean, is that just something we want to try to have together for the next meeting? Will we be in?
That would be my recommendation.
And, okay, I guess we'll have to, I'm just thinking through what we need to be able to do that, but I think we have everything. We have our existing budget. We have whatever appropriation we have from Sunbury. We know how much the insurance is, so we know what left we have to move around there. We know how much the contract is, so.
For the remainder of the year.
Any other?
Should we be, sorry, speaking of budgets, should we be thinking about, because we're basically in budget season, should we be thinking about what we'll need for 2026 and submitting that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Some boards adopt a budget at their organizational meeting each calendar year. Some boards prefer to adopt their budget prospectively. So in November, if you want to meet towards the end of this year, to have a budget in place when January 2026 rolls around, or if you wanted to adopt a budget, just going back to what I previously said, in January 2026, when you meet, you can do that as well. You, however, cannot spend money in any fiscal year until you have budgeted for it.
And I'm trying to think through what we need to do to even be able to project out a budget for next year. I mean, I think we've identified, I mean, we certainly have this contract that we, just went over tonight. We potentially have other costs should we proceed to, move forward with trying to get things on the ballot with, whatever comes after getting the report on this, the called for this report. So
The continued legal fees.
yeah.
Whatever. I mean, I think we need to think about what we want to accomplish next year.
Mhm.
Like, what is the end goal? And then work backwards to what that's going to cost us to get there.
And in some respects, it's really hard to do before we get the report.
Very hard to do.
What we can do is,
They
yeah.
say there's a chance we can go next year.
It's extremely hard to do, but I think we have to look at what is our goal, right? If our goal is to have a ballot measure that we're voting on, like a bond measure to vote on in the November election period, we need to know what we need to do to get there.
Correct.
So, and it's probably a lot. And I don't know all of it. And that's where Betsy probably help a lot. But I keep sorry. But that's what I'm thinking.
And so I guess if we're thinking about, identifying all we want to accomplish, it really should be, best case scenario that we get to do everything. And is there a suggestion or recommendation in terms of like, if you're gonna err, do you try to, do you err?
Conservatively or aggressively, you're right, like more or less.
Too hard and then.
Right, we fail.
Be frugal in a sense of.
Because, and let me ask another question. It's kind of tied to that. Let's say we ask for $100,000, right? And we only spend 50 because we can't get everything done. I don't think it just automatically carries over into next year, but does it go back to each municipality?
I guess it would depend on whether or not the cash was transferred, but the appropriation is for a 1 year window. So you've got appropriations and you have a cash.
Sure.
So they're two different things.
Yeah.
So the general rule is an appropriation does not carry over.
Yeah.
So like I said, so let's say it's $100,000, and the political jurisdictions agree to give you half of that up front, give you 50,000, and you spend 40,000 of it, right? I mean, the $10,000 in cash is still sitting in the bank, but you don't have the appropriation to spend it. That unless you amend the budget to do so, and the additional 50,000 that was promised, you've kind of exhausted the year, so you really don't capture that
Sure.
appropriation. You'll do it in the next cycle. So
Yeah.
A little bit of a nuance, but it's, I mean, we can sort of work through that one.
Yep.
So aside from maybe the sticker shock that would come from overestimating, is there any like negative aspect of over projecting? Like,
Yeah, I was going to say the sticker shock.
but
It's
appropriated to us and we
Yeah.
wound up not using it. Cause and then what's the consequence if we underestimate? It seems like that would be really hard to cure midway through, right? I mean, cause the budget process.
Exactly, we are.
Yeah, I think it's exactly where we are today. I don't think it's that hard to cure.
It's hard, yeah, we gotta figure out a good spot where we're not scaring people.
Yeah, and I guess we need to get a sense of how long it would actually take, do people have to do 3 readings and?
Yeah, I mean, it would, I mean, we'd probably know, several months ahead if we needed more.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, and well, the election piece, I think I don't know.
That's a big question mark.
Yeah, so, how would we get that and to do our budget,
We can easily provide an estimate on that, especially since it'll be hypothetically the 2026 general election, the cost share will be low. There'll be a lot of different entities on the ballot.
I think the consulting piece is my consulting for that and writing the language and,
Mhm.
what Becky talked about. How would we know what we need? I mean,
We can provide an estimate.
Okay.
And just like Pizzuti is providing an estimate, it's supposed to be more of a final contract cost of, 56,250. They built in that 5,000 contingency into that, for example, but, if, I don't know, month 5, the board doesn't think that they're getting the product that they want, and Pizzuti said, we'll help you out for another couple months if you give us another, 20 grand. That's something that we can amend in a future budget. So rather than, specifically appropriating 56,250 for consulting services, maybe budget for 60,000. Use round numbers. Again, to Daryl's point, as long as you're not providing sticker shock, the budget can closely approximate what you expect to spend in a particular category. As long as you don't overspend in that category without formally amending your budget, there's nothing wrong with over budgeting slightly.
Yeah, the other thing is, I do have in packet page 3, I did the updated population numbers from the Delaware County Regional Planning Commission, so you could see those share of costs, how they're going to be distributed in 2025. So in some ways, if you look at 2024, the city of Sunbury was in for just a little over 49% of the costs. In 25, based on the total population, we're actually down to 46. So Berkshire Township is growing at a faster rate and actually picking up a bigger share. And Galena comes down just a little bit. So as maybe you think about the numbers, I mean, those will be kind of the, if it's $100,000 budget, it's roughly $10,000 for Galena. Now,
So are the respective political subdivision shares, are they determined like beginning of the year base? Like when is that
so
evaluated?
What about population estimates provided by the Delaware County Regional Planning Commission that are generally updated every April?
Yeah, I was going to say, so the cooperative agreement signed between the between all of the jurisdictions said we would use that number and as it gets updated. So,
Annually.
right.
Until April.
Yeah. So we start the year at 1% and it may shift a little bit after the number comes in, but yeah. So maybe as a next step, let's think a little bit about what you need. So one thing we want, which one? So one thing Mike, if you could do again, you'll get the ballot kind of estimated costs.
Yes.
Let me see if I can get a general sense of, okay, what consulting services would we need that are not legal services? If as we take the market analysis and needs assessment, what's the next thing that has to happen if we were to go to the ballot? And see if we can't get a rough estimate of a cost there. And maybe that's the beginning. And maybe we don't, maybe we go to the jurisdictions and we say, okay, we know we're going to have, these costs. We expect to have X amount of consulting services. And if we go to the ballot, it's an additional blank. Maybe we don't ask for the additional blank yet, but we've already teed it up so they at least understand kind of what it could look like if we had to come back. So Jim, I appreciate Jim saying that it is going to be tight. I mean, that is a tight window. So all the more reason why it's great that tonight we acted on the contract so we can get them started. The sooner we get them started, I mean, the only chance we have of getting to next year's ballot is to start this needs assessment now. And so thank you for that.
So then the next step for that is it for Mike or whoever to communicate back to them and get them to agree to our,
Yes,
Yeah.
propose back some revisions, including the provision, the clause that the contract is subject to annual appropriation, make sure that their legal counsel is on board with that provision. Once we have the finalized legal terms, we've got the board's approval pending a written commitment for money for the contract to execute it and start the engagement.
Which we'll get from Sunbury to get that started. So got that, we will have that in the file.
So I'm just trying to think about timing within, I don't know, the next couple of weeks. Do we anticipate, I mean, before the next meeting, we anticipate
Yes.
it would all be done? Okay.
What is the process that we talk to Berkshire and Galena?
About
The money.
Yeah, so I think you're ready. I mean, if you want me to go with you, I'm happy to go to
Okay.
the,
So would that be Greg and I going with you with Tyler? How, or what, how do we do it?
We just strong arm him. We just-
Okay.
No, I'd say,
We know where he works.
I think, the initial outreach should be to the administrator, right?
Yes.
Talking about this,
Okay.
we know the number, here's our percentage, this is what we would need in additional appropriations, to satisfy the cooperative agreement, intergovernmental agreement that was signed previously. How do I get that, in front of the trustees for an adjustment? And Tyler can assist you there. Same thing then with the Village of Galena. Take it to the mayor, take it to the administrator. I'm not sure who handles that process,
The
but
timing though, the timing of that.
Mhm.
So say we come back next time and say, these are the things we think it's gonna cost this, and this is what we think our budget's gonna be. Then do we go and do that?
so these are two different things. One is kind of to deal with this current budget.
Oh, okay.
The other one then is to talk about the 2026 budget. So the city of Sunbury, and like I'm sure every other jurisdiction, I mean, we are starting to put together our budget documents for next year. But they don't have to be approved by the legislative authorities until December. So there's still time to get that number in front of them and in their packet before the 2026 cycle.
We would have time if we came back next meeting, did our budget for next year for 26, then we could.
Yeah, there'll be time. So again, and I don't know who handles it for your side, if the mayor or if the council president, I'm not sure who leads the effort on appropriation adjustments.
It's usually a team effort, but
Okay.
there's a finance committee and.
Okay, I was gonna say, but if you want me to kind of help facilitate that, just let me know who to kind of work through. But as far as the township, I talk to Tyler. He'll have a good sense of how to do it.
Greg, would you like me to reach out to Tyler? All right. Okay, he beats me.
Just if you need me to go to his office, just let me know.
Yeah, okay. We might meet for coffee. I'll try and schedule something for all of us, okay?
So I think we have our plan, we know immediate next steps. Any other discussion?
Well, we need to set the next meeting date.
It's other Wednesday.
Yeah.
Well,
They're great.
it depends on the Wednesday. So today is the 27th.
How long do you think we need?
At least 2 weeks. I know we can turn this contract revision around in a day, but I don't know quite how long it'll take Pizzuti to respond.
Oh, okay.
Give them a limit. You have 2 days.
Yeah, so 3
Let them
weeks.
do whatever they have to.
3 weeks out would be September 17th, 4 weeks out would be September 24th. I will say for myself, both of those Wednesdays would be extremely challenging for me. I don't know what other people's availability looks like. September 18th. I'll throw out there.
So I'm the 10th I can't do. The week of the 15th, I'm probably then the week of the 15th, 22nd, and 29th, I'm gonna be traveling for work. So I'm probably out. So don't schedule around me, basically.
Would you want us to try to accommodate?
Virtual?
Yeah, I don't know if that's an option.
It depends on the time and where I'm at, right? Like if,
Okay.
So you schedule it, and if I can meet virtually, I will be there.
Any, what about September 16th on a Tuesday?
That's it.
That Tuesday, but I can't do virtual, but fortunately. I'm pretty,
Monday? Which one, Monday? 15?
Or 22?
The 15th, and the 22nd are also difficult for me, but at this point, like there aren't any
I know.
many evenings that aren't difficult. for
Friday
me.
night now, all of a sudden.
We said Friday night.
I'll bring a bottle.
I mean, I even Friday nights anymore get tricky. But I would say, like I can you know, if my kids have to miss things, they have to miss things.
You can use the, what was it, the Delaware Area Transit Authority to get them to places.
There you go.
Found out about that again.
But they don't go outside of the area. Like, yeah, I can't send them out to Dublin on that.
And you might also want to consider all the topics that you might be discussing at the next meeting. So it could potentially be a brief meeting depending on
Yeah, it would.
if you're just doing end of year budgeting. Again, that's a topic that could be conducted solely virtually.
I was gonna say, we could
That would
have a
be-
virtual only meeting, and then we could start at a later time, even
Yeah, that would.
7:30, 8 o'clock. I mean, I know you guys all have families and, yeah, exactly, but
I would be in favor of a virtual meeting.
So let's start with that virtual meeting. Everybody
Great.
ready with that? All right.
And then are we shooting for the week of the 15th or the 22nd? Or is this just like a crapshoot? And
sorry, one more question. Virtual meeting, do we need to be on camera or can we be just voice only?
I would have to go back and double check the policy. I know for a vote, it'll have to be a roll call vote on anything that's voted upon. I can't recall if there has to be a camera.
Okay,
There has to be a way for anyone to provide public comment from the resident's perspective. So there'll be a Zoom link that will be publicly posted, but I'll have to go back and check if there's video required.
Yeah.
right.
Jody, I think you brought up the 15th.
I was just throwing dates out.
Okay, I mean, virtual makes it easier for me the later.
At night,
Yeah,
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock would work. I don't know, that seems, are you guys both like,
It's more of a question for Daryl.
yeah, does that make you? Does that?
Well, I was gonna say, all the other options you called out are gonna be a challenge for the city, but 8 o'clock works. Oh, no,
8 p.m.
8 o'clock's fine.
15 to 8 p.m. virtual.
So September 15th at 8 p.m. virtual.
Yep.
And it's on Zoom.
Yeah, it's a Zoom link.
Yeah.
I'll send the Zoom link to everybody. Yep.
Just to discuss budget.
So we'll do the budget appropriation
Correct.
for the current year, and then we'll start talking about next year's budget. Yep.
And the board can add any additional topics in advance of the meeting, and you can discuss any general business that you would otherwise in a in-person board meeting. We're not discussing taxes at this point, so there's nothing that would trigger a requirement for it to be discussed in person, presumably for the next meeting.
All right.
Okay.
See, there's information on the agenda. Does that contemplate something we haven't gone over yet?
No, I just had it if there was an informational item, but I don't
Okay.
have any.
Anything further? All right, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Muzakio,
Yes.
Ms. Sabata,
Yes.
Prager,
Yes.
Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Yes.
Earned.